Government accused of a cop-out in the battle with obesity. Ministers say a voluntary target to cut sugar and more sport will help, while respecting economic realities. Health campaigners say they're underwhelmed with what they say are watered-down plans.
There's no compulsion, so I would like to see much tougher regulation backing this up.
To say that's not ambitious, to say that's not a big ask of our industry, our manufacturers, our retailers, is not the case. It is.
Also this lunchtime, security concerns in Rio after a Team GB athlete is robbed at the Olympics. The image of the Syrian child that captures the horror of Aleppo and shocks the world. And why thousands more A-level students are heading to university this year, although the top grades are down.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Alistair Stewart.
Good afternoon. Theresa May said health inequality was a priority when she first spoke from the steps of Downing Street as Prime Minister. The health lobby say her government's flagship childhood obesity plan, the first test of that, is a flop. It's voluntary, and they say bows to the pressures of a powerful industry. There's been particular concern over plans to cut down the amount of sugar in products built on voluntary targets over 4 years, rather than legislating right now. Ministers say it will help whilst acknowledging economic realities. Well, in a moment we'll hear from an industry representative. But first, political correspondent Paul Brand reports.
For these children in Ipswich, losing weight is a constant fight. The summer holidays are a good time for exercise and a good time for the government to slip out its own slimmed-down obesity strategy, which was supposed to help with each of these individual battles.
I do put a lot of thought into what I eat, and I always look at the calories and everything else in them and make sure it's not something too bad.
I think I'm a bit overweight a bit, and I would kind of like to get more energetic and exercising.
The government's plan says companies should help, but only voluntarily, by reducing sugar in children's food and drink by 20%, a target which will be monitored over 4 years, with the first 5% cut from sugar levels in the next 12 months. There's huge disappointment from many corners that regulation won't be used to enforce the target.
We were very shocked and I think disappointed. We saw this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to really tackle what is a burgeoning crisis, and one which will mean huge emotional and clinical harm and also cost to the nation in the future, and it's very short-sighted that we've not got something clearer now.
I think there's much more that could have been done, but in the long term some of this will make a difference. So like trying to take some of the sugar out of products over a long period of time, but unfortunately there's no compulsion. So I would like to see much tougher regulation backing this up.
Today's plan does include that tax on sugary drinks, announced earlier this year and celebrated by the likes of Jamie Oliver.
I think this was a big, bold, brave, unconventional move.
But today he was disappointed the plan won't limit junk food ads or supermarket deals as the government tries to defend its policy.
There are two things, the soft drinks industry levy and the reformulation plan, along with a lot of other policies. But those two things taken together will be the most ambitious reformulation programme that any developed country has ever tried to do. So to say that's not ambitious, to say that's not a big ask of our industry, our manufacturers, our retailers, is not the case. It is a big ask, but we think we can do it.
Note, she's only a former health minister, the health secretary and prime minister, both on holiday. You could wonder whether someone's trying to bury this strategy, no matter how clear and visible our battle with obesity might be. Paul Brand, ITV News.
A little earlier, I spoke to Ian Wright of the Food and Drink Federation, and I began by asking him if the government was putting the well-being of a major industry ahead of the well-being of children.
Well, I don't think that's true. I think this is a balanced solution. It's very onerous for food manufacturers. It's not a simple task to reduce the sugar content of the foods that have been nominated by 20% over 4 or 5 years. Indeed, it won't be done in some cases, and it will be very costly, and it involves a lot of scientific work. So
it's voluntary.
Yes.
And it opens up a consultation. And if it doesn't quite work out, they'll chat to you again and what have you. I mean, the Department of Health itself this morning said our approach will reduce obesity while respecting consumer choice and economic realities. lose. You've won.
Well, I don't think it's a question of win or lose. The key people we want to win are children and obese people in this country. The key thing, though, is that there are economic realities. This is a very fragile time. Consumer confidence is very fragile. But it's also the case that this is a difficult task. It's not an easy thing to do. And you do have to respect consumer choice, because in the end, consumers will decide what to do.
But one of the other things that people are, on the anti-side, as it were, are concerned about is that the battle you put up successfully against post-watershed advertising, promoting what people call junk food and soft drinks and what have you, to youngsters. I mean, that is an absolute economic reality. You're only doing that because you want to sell more.
Well, we want to give people a choice. There's very little evidence at all, if any, that advertising actually extends a market. It makes it easier for people to choose between competing brands. And that's one of the reasons to keep it. But I don't think this is a question of win or lose. It doesn't feel this morning like we've won and somebody has lost. It feels like we've made a step here in the direction of tackling childhood obesity. Now it's up to food manufacturers to take that on, to take the responsibility we've just been handed by the government and to make it work for everybody in this country.
Ian Wright of the food and drink industry talking to me a little earlier. Now, other news. There are security concerns for our athletes in Rio after a member of Team GB was robbed, reportedly at gunpoint. As a result, officials have told competitors not to leave the Olympic Village whilst wearing the Team GB kit. Well, Amy Lewis is at the Olympic Park for us and joins us live from Rio now. Amy, what else have you been able to find out about this particular incident?
The British team have confirmed that there was an incident, but they say everyone is safe. Security, Alistair, was always going to be a concern for these Olympics. 88,000 officers were deployed for the Games. That's twice the number that was deployed for the London Olympics 4 years ago. The British Olympic Association have been so concerned by this latest incident that they've emailed every single British athlete concerning them and letting them know about the risks here in Rio. Now, earlier on, I had a look at that email. I was shown a copy of it. It warns athletes not to go out unnecessarily. If they do go out, they need to check in and out with the British Olympic Association. It warns them not to go out in their kit, and it also says that they shouldn't go out on their own.
And worrying news of a health nature overnight about the TV presenter Charlie Webster.
Yeah, Charlie arrived here about a fortnight ago at the end of a 3,000-mile bike ride for charity. The opening ceremony, she was suffering from what she thought was dehydration and she went to hospital. She even tweeted a picture of herself, but actually after that she deteriorated. She's now in an induced coma. She's suffering from a rare form of malaria. On a personal note, I worked with Charlie for about 3 years. She's one of the most determined people you'll meet. She's raised thousands for charity. We recently filmed her on the road to Rio. I've spoken to her team today. They say that she's in a top private hospital, adding that her family are by her side.
Amy, we wish her well. Thank you very much for joining us. Meanwhile, in the Rio, 2 US Olympic swimmers have been stopped from boarding a flight back to America and questioned by the Brazilian police over the alleged robbery of teammate Ryan Lochte. US Olympic officials said Jack Conger and Gunnar Bentz were released with the understanding that they would cooperate with the police. Lochte, who's already back in the United States, has said that he and three teammates were robbed at gunpoint by men with a police badge as they returned to the athletics village in Rio. And later in the programme, we'll get all of the very latest on the sport, including a terrific result for the Team GB women's hockey team. But before that, around 1,500 terminal breast cancer patients in England have learnt that they may soon lose access to a drug that helps extend their lives. The health watchdog NICE, which recently took over decisions about licensing treatments on the NHS, is planning to withdraw the drug. Well, campaigners say that would be a disaster. Our correspondent Angus Walker joins me live. First of all, why are these changes taking place and what, in your objective view, do they mean for patients?
Well, why these changes, the short answer many people will of course know, is money. This relates to the Cancer Drugs Fund budget, £340 million a year. Now, it was recently revamped because it was under unsustainable financial pressure, according to NHS England. It seems those pressures aren't over. They're now advising 2 drugs, one to treat a certain type of breast cancer, one to treat a rare type of cancer of the immune system, lose funding. And what's happened now is that those affected patients are going to be told, but they're in England only. Now, these drugs are for patients who really are at last resort stage. Other treatments have failed, but using these drugs, it may extend their lives by months, even years.
It gives people good life, it gives people extended life, which, as I said before, it's priceless, really. Unless you're in our position, you don't know how it feels to take something that can extend your life.
This morning I spoke to Baroness Delith Morgan. She's the Chief Executive at Breast Cancer Now. She fears that now more drugs may lose funding.
This is a huge blow for a group of breast cancer patients for whom their treatment is no longer working. They potentially have a very short time to live, and this is a treatment option that their clinicians can draw on to give them extra time.
Now, NHS England will argue that the new fund will speed up newer, faster, perhaps more effective drugs for patients. But for the patients themselves, they have this very powerful question. Can you put a price tag on life?
Angus, thank you. A striking image of a young boy sitting dazed and bloodied in an ambulance has been released by activists in Syria. The child, who's thought to be 5 years old, was treated by doctors for head wounds. It's not known what's happened to the rest of his family. A warning, you may find some of the pictures in this report distressing. Here's Emma Murphy.
There are many front lines in Syria's war. Last night, Omran Daknish's home became one of them. Attacked from the skies, it collapsed upon him. Somehow he's survived, but at what cost? His hair matted with the dust from his home, his face caked in his own blood. He's left alone in the ambulance. There's no one to hold his hand here, and at 5 years old he doesn't even cry. He just pats his little face and wipes the blood on the seat as he tries to work out what's happened. He isn't alone for long. The tragedy is that those who keep him company are just as young and equally traumatised. This part of eastern Aleppo is a stronghold of anti-Assad sentiment. And these airstrikes are viewed here as retribution because rebels broke through a government siege 10 days ago. An informant had warned that a jet had taken off from one of the Russian bases. 2 minutes later, there were 2 airstrikes. Today, the doctor who treated Omran told ITV News that he was one of 8 brought in last night after 2 days of intense air attacks. Omran Daknish was treated for a head injury and has now been released from hospital. So too the other children who were brought in at the same time. They are supposedly the lucky ones. So often in the past, the faces of children like Omran have been used to highlight the horror of a conflict and argue for action. But real action is rare, and perhaps the great tragedy here is that Omran is not necessarily the true face of Aleppo. For all his hell, he is in fact less harmed than many. Emma Murphy, ITV News.
And in Turkey, at least 3 people have died and more than 50 have been wounded after a car bomb exploded outside a police station. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack in the eastern city of Elazig, but local news agencies are reporting that the outlawed PKK militant group was behind it. Here, record numbers of university places across the UK have been offered to students who got their A-level results this morning. The proportion getting the very top grades, however, dipped just a little. But clearing service UCAS says that over 400,000 places have already been offered and more will be available through clearing, including more than usual at the leading universities. Joanna Partridge reports.
The end of a long wait for students and teachers. In Sheffield and around England, Wales and Northern Ireland, teenagers opened their A-level results this morning.
I'm off to York St John's to do a history degree. Quite excited because I'm the first one in my family to go to university.
I'm studying chemical engineering via natural sciences at University of Cambridge. So obviously I feel I feel pretty proud at the moment.
I didn't get what I needed. We'll not talk about that part. But I got in somewhere through clearing, so to do the course I wanted. So I'm all right now.
Record numbers of A-level students have gained a place at university this year, with 424,000 students being offered their first or second choice degree course. For the 5th year in a row, the proportion of students getting A stars and A's fell. 25.8% scored those top grades. In the past, only students who didn't achieve the grades they needed could find a course through clearing. This year, the race to get a university place is a buyer's rather than a seller's market.
When you open your letter this morning and you did better than you thought, there is an option potentially to do adjustment. So if you were predicted an A and 2 Bs and you got 2 A's and a B, you could apply through for a different university through adjustment.
After the Brexit vote, some universities are concerned they won't be able to attract as many European students. Others have incentives to lure top talent. How about free tickets to watch Premier League champions Leicester City, offered by the city's De Montfort University? Of course, university isn't the only option. Businesses are backing apprenticeships for those who want to learn a practical skill and avoid the rising cost of studying. Joanna Partridge, ITV News.
And if you still need more information on how that clearing process works, then we've put a full guide on our website, itv.com/news. As promised, we return to the Olympics, where it was a truly thrilling night for the women's hockey team, beating rather convincingly the favourites New Zealand. Their win means that they are guaranteed at least a silver medal as they go on to face the Netherlands in Friday's final. Well, this afternoon, the Brownlee brothers go head-to-head in the triathlon, and we will be live in Leeds with their supporters in just a second. But first, Nick Wallace has all the overnight action.
Great Britain failed to win a single medal on day 12 of Rio 2016, but the GB women's hockey team kept the flag flying with their stunning semi-final performance. An early goal, scored by Helen Danson after a penalty corner, steadied the nerves, but a tight physical game was in the balance until the final quarter. Captain Helen Richardson-Walsh was brought down whilst clean through on goal. She stepped up to score the resultant penalty. Then Lily Owsley was tripped in the area. Helen Danson found the back of the net again. Cue wild celebrations at the final hooter and a shot at gold. Another British medal, this time a definite gold, should finally land today for Hannah Mills and Saskia Clark. They take to the water after yesterday's final stage of the 470 class sailing was postponed because the conditions were too calm to race. The British pair are 20 points ahead of their nearest rivals and only need to finish to win gold. On the track, sprint superstar Usain Bolt cruised into the men's 200-metre final. The 29-year-old Jamaican is looking to match his third consecutive 100-metre Olympic gold with a similar achievement in the longer sprint. And on this form, you wouldn't bet against him. As Bolt won his heat in 19.78 seconds, he grinned at his Lane 5 counterpart, Andre de Grasse, who was happy to share the moment, whilst also setting a new Canadian national record. Britain's Adam Jamili also made it into the final as a fastest loser. Away from the stadium flashbulbs, the Brownlee brothers, Alistair and Johnny, seen here a month before winning triathlon gold and bronze for Britain at London 2012, will be hoping to be in the medals again this afternoon in Rio on what could be a thrilling day 13 of the Games. Nick Wallace, ITV News.
And we can go live to Ian Payne, who, as you can see there, is at a fan zone in Leeds, where friends and supporters of the Brownlee brothers are gathering to watch them compete. Ian, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Lovely weather for the beach. Here we are in Leeds, where the council has basically made a giant sand pit, so we all think we're about to play beach volleyball or something. It is, of course, the Brownlee Brothers' Day in the triathlon, and they are the pride of Yorkshire, the pride of Leeds, and in fact, the cardboard cutouts of the whole triathlon team are proudly on display here with the Team GB insignia. Now, can they do as well as they did in 2012? Because in London, of course, 4 years ago, the Brownlee brothers picked up a gold and a bronze. and they'll have to go some to do that again, although some of their biggest rivals are not involved this year. They're injured. Let's have a word with some people then who are taking this right down to the grassroots level. Mike Jubb is with me. He's from the Triathlon Trust, which is the charitable arm of British Triathlon, and you're here to try and encourage as many people as possible to get involved in this sport.
Absolutely, and yeah, we want the exploits of our team over there in Rio to sort of incentivise and inspire people to get involved, whether it's kids getting involved here today on the bikes we've got here today, or it's people signing up and doing their own personal triathlon through Your Go Try, which is a website British Triathlon set up so people could just set up their own event to have a go themselves.
So you can just do a 100-metre swim if you want.
Absolutely.
So what we've got here, we've got the bikes. Come on lads, we've got to go for it. We've got to push it as hard as you can, faster. These boys are just getting into the act of just one part of the 3 parts of triathlon. That, of course, is the sprinting. And what we've got a sort of Top Gear style winner's board here, with Stuart leading by a minute and 15 at the bottom. So basically, as you can see, getting more and more people involved in triathlon is all part of what they're doing here. It's 3 o'clock, the Brownlee brothers are in action. So they'll all be watching on the big screen here. Mike will be here, my friend will be here as well, and the boys on the bikes will never stop. So good luck to the Brownlees, they're off at 3.
Right, Ian, thank you very much indeed. And live straight away to Olivia Kinsley, who's at the Way Kayak Club in Guildford. Breaking news. Some news for us there, Olivia. If you can hear me over there clapping, I gather it's silver.
Well, I'm in Guildford where we've got immense excitement here. A silver medal for Liam Heath and John Schofield. David, you've been training him since he was 10 years old or so. How is it? That's Liam, I mean, who's trained him since he was 10.
He came to the club 10 years ago. He's been an absolute inspiration to us for a long, long time. We're really delighted. He's bettered his 2012. He's now got silver. Gold to come. He's still in the K1. He still has a chance to win a gold medal from tomorrow's heats and then the final on Saturday.
Can he do it?
I think he's capable of doing it. It just depends so much on the conditions and what's happening.
Well, I hope you saw it there. Immense excitement here in Guildford. It's just been a wonderful morning here. I think they may have been expecting a goal, but he's got another chance of that on Saturday. Best of luck for him.
All right, Olivia, we wish them well. Thank you very much indeed. That is it. Very live. We like it when it's live. We hope you do too. Mary Nightingale and Mark Austin will be here with the ITV Evening News. The news where you are follows the national weather. But for now, from all of us, bye-bye.